My son, he was 17 years old. He was murdered. I came home from work and found him dead.
My comfort level was the streets. It wasn't about the money, it was about the excitement. I got away with something.
I went to prison and sat there for 5.5 years.
We got the phone call that our son was shot. It was a nightmare.
I did 12 years in the prison. I read the email and it said that my son was dead, his mother was shot.
This is a 17-year-old man that was viciously murdered in a car in front of City Hall. And I thought about it, so we have to do something.
There is an African proverb that says that the child that does not feel the warmth of their village or family will burn it down to feel its warmth. And I think violence often emerges out of the deficit that's carried in the soul of our young people.
Kareem was an 11th grade Allen High School student. He was 17 years old. Good kid, funny kid, awesome at home with his siblings. He ended up falling into the wrong path and choosing the wrong friends. Got involved with gangs. I came home from work and found him dead in his own bed and not realizing that he had been shot. As a mother, we're supposed to be here to keep our kids safe, and that's why I'm here.
My son was 25 and he was shot coming home from work. My son was not a gang member. My son was actually very involved with the community. He mentored kids. He was a boxer and then became a trainer, so he would take young kids off the streets and train them. He was trying to make a difference in our community. We assume it was gang violence because up to this point we don't know why it happened.
I don't know that anybody's capable of really getting a measure of what the cost of violent crimes is. If somebody goes to jail, the family loses income, the family gets disrupted, their lives change, they get evicted, that eviction leads to other kinds of things. The impact on the family, on the neighborhood, and beyond is considerably greater than the actual cost of the incarceration itself.
I grew up in the 80s, right? And I grew up in Brooklyn, New York in the 80s, and this is the real Brooklyn, not the Brooklyn of today with Yorkies and French Bulldogs. This is gentrified Brooklyn. I grew up in the hood, the rap hood. I was in a gang, I started gangs when I was younger. Things were dangerous, high crime, high violence, and it really impacted my lens, it impacted my worldview, and it impacted the decision-making that I made.
I wasn't involved with gangs, but I was heavy in the drug scene. One of the major guys out here that was, doing what we do.
I'm a transplant baby. I came from New York, down here to Allentown in the 80s. So I basically grew up in all the low-income housing areas. My grandfather was my only male role model. Once he went, I could do whatever I wanted. No one was gonna tell me anything. Early 90s, got affiliated with the Latin Kings. Started hustling. Started with, little petty crimes. And after a while, it was let's just break into everything.
I migrated here from the South Bronx in 1979. Grew up in a single-parent home, and my mom did the best job that she could do with what she had, because I didn't have a father present. Someone very influential in my life called me a loser, so I actually lived up to that. I graduated high school, and the hope I had for myself was I was bound to live on 2nd Street, and I was doomed to working some kind of petty job and to really be a nobody and to be nothing.
It's 1994. My grandmother died. That's who raised me. My family just started acting funny, like wasn't showing no love. I always hang around the projects. I was always around the homies. I wasn't blood to myself, but to them, I was already blood because I was already there. I just never got initiated. They came, they showed all types of love, and they just made a home, like a cocoon.
I came here as a trauma surgeon in 1993, and about 2.5 years after I started here, we really had a peak in violent crime. I saw a large increase in the number of patients that we were taking care of with gunshot and stab wounds. And it was due to a spike in gang activity in the inner city Allentown. Fortunately, over the next several years, we saw a gradual decrease in that type of violent crime, and that trend has really persisted through today.
I think people believe that the world has gotten more violent when in fact it's less violent. In downtown Allentown, the neighborhood where we're doing our work, violent crimes decreased 16% last year, citywide 12%, so it actually went down more in Center City.
When we first started out here, it was help the Latin community. If elderly people would be food shopping, help them take their stuff home, you know, help the community, help the kids, help everybody. But somehow between the 90s and early 2000, everything got misconstrued. When it went from helping to hanging out, now you're bored, now you're trying to find something else to do. The something else was the hustling. Once that negativity got involved, it's hard to take it out.
What would have made a difference was if my father was around. Somebody pushing me to work on my left-handed basketball shot, you know. Somebody that I could sit and talk to like my boys do to me now. That's why I turned blood. I turned blood for the love they showed. They showed unconditional love no matter what I did, what I dressed, what I smelt like, what I could do, what I can't do, if I can't read, if I couldn't walk. They didn't care. They just wanted me around.
One of the things that we're finding in this work and our research is that youth are joining gangs for 3 reasons. One being safety, the second being sense of belonging, and the third being family disruption.
My job is to help communities rally around the things that are putting youth at risk. Gangs are experts at social development strategy. Kids can get that recognition, opportunities to complete a task and get rewarded for it, and then feel good about themselves.
As a pastor of a church, I will tell you that everybody wants to belong to something that often is greater than that from which they've come. And oftentimes, gangs, unfortunately, offer things that many of our communities don't, right? They offer shelter, they offer a place where you can be a part of an extended family, they offer protection. So do I think that it's appropriate to join a gang? Absolutely not. But I understand if you don't have some of those basic, essential emotional elements, how one can fall into joining a gang.
We know that nationally, about 14 young people die each day from homicide. And youth violence is costly, currently estimated at about $21 billion annually.
The Pennsylvania Youth Survey, otherwise known as PAYS, is a tool that is administered to 6th, 8th, 10th, and 12th graders. In Northampton County, we have youth reporting that 10% of the students that took the survey are at risk for becoming involved in gangs. In Lehigh County, that number is 14%. That doesn't mean we have 10 and 14% of our youth involved in gangs currently. What they really told us is that the conditions in their life put them at risk for that sort of behavior.
According to our recent survey, 23.9% I think of students in their survey said that they've been threatened or experienced violence on school property. Those numbers aren't okay. When we fail to engage youth, when we fail to create opportunities for youth, when we fail to give them chances to win and be recognized, they turn to gangs, finding safety amongst each other.
The downtown neighborhoods have untold challenges, but I think that where it gets to its worst is violence in the street. That is what led us to start thinking differently about what we were doing in the neighborhoods.
When did I turn around? When did I turn the corner? This isn't like the movies where I have this love interest and she backs me in a corner with this ultimatum like either you stop selling drugs, you put your gun up. No, it took a long time because I had a lifetime of maladaptive behaviors to unlearn. I still had my friends that were in the community that were in their hood. And there's something that a lot of people don't think about and understand that I began to call survivor's guilt. You know, I was leaving all of the people I grew up with for a new life, and that was difficult.
Went to prison and sat there for 5.5 years. And I read this one book. It's written by Kevin Powell. It's called The Black Man's Handbook. And it made me cry because it's all things that you know already, but you just have to refresh. But my dream is to walk these kids through this life, to show them what I went through, that they don't need to go through, is that you could go from bad to good at any given time.
I was a monetary dad. I was never a father. No one showed me how to be a father. After doing all this time and being around my grandkids, now it's like, boy, did I mess up. Because that's the one thing that they cherish the most, the little bit of time that you spend with them.
I went to the computer in the day room in the prison, like any other morning. I opened up my email, I read the email, and it said, that my son was dead, his mother was shot. I had to read it a few times to fully understand what was taking place. When my son got killed, something inside just, I don't want to use the word snapped, maybe it connected. And I did a lot of reflecting with a lot of things that I've done and a lot of people that I harmed. And I told myself I never want to be that person again.
If gangs build safety and community and brotherhood for these guys, we have to replace that gang life with acceptance into mainstream society. People have made mistakes, but they still add value. There are no throwaway people, and we have to welcome them into our communities.
I had an opportunity to take a class that was teaching intermediate life coaching skills. During the course of learning these skills, I started actually practicing the skills on myself.
The reason I've started on this journey of change was education. I went back to school. I'm about ready to be a college graduate in one more semester. People are willing to help you. The community is willing to help you. But you gotta learn how to open up your mouth. No one knows what you need until you ask for it.
When we've been meeting with the gang leaders, almost every meeting we've had, I've started by saying, you guys have an awful lot more power than you realize. You have the power to destroy this city. You have the power to save this city. When people have so little opportunities and have so little hope, they have no connectivity, they're isolated, they have no sense of a future, things go wrong. And so we've got gangs that fill in that void in many respects. Unfortunately, that void includes violence. So Hassan introduced me to these issues. I started looking at things very differently, and the result is that over the next 6 years, we expect to put hopefully about $5 million into improving the lot of the kids in the neighborhood. The gang members are interested exclusively in opportunities for kids, and that's a good point for us to work together.
We know the answers, we know the solutions, and the data continually shows that youth that have extracurricular activities are more successful, communities are safer, and communities are more thriving. So we need to create opportunities collectively where youth have access to things that will contribute to their lives and to our community positively.
My hope is that if they're part of the decision-making process, they're going to have a vested ownership in the solution, and they're going to be recognized that they are part of that solution.
We broke the city. Now, anything I can do to try to make it better, I'm going to try to do it. And if I use that same drive I had, that I did running the streets, I know I can make a difference.
My hope is that we create some more community-led programs to influence these young kids that the gang life and the gun violence is not an answer. A positive way for conflict resolution. My son did not have to be murdered. This could have been resolved. So I feel like a lot of lives have been destroyed and changed forever. Not only my side and my son's family, his murder. His family now suffer that as well.
They need a big brother, somebody to lean on, somebody that went through it so they can see what's going on and teach them the right path and show them. You understand me? Because some people don't got fathers at home. Some kids don't have a mom.
If I was exposed to some better educational opportunities and I had a wider worldview as a youngster, I would have most likely took another direction. It's sad, but the worldview of the urban community sometimes is small. Growing up, everybody pretty much is confined to their so-called block. And I think if we're exposed to different things younger in life, our opportunities would be vast because we would see them. I look back and I remember people offering me different opportunities, but I just didn't see them because my worldview was so small. I really believe that.
The Zero Youth Violence Program is Allentown's version of the International Cure Violence model, and it has been shown to decrease violence up to 80% in the cities that it's been fully funded across the globe. So the reason we named it Zero Youth Violence is because, so we know nationally violent crimes in decline, but the parents that came together, the stakeholders that came together, we said that we need to have zero youth under the age of 25 murdered in our city because the loss of one child is too many.
We may not be able to protect every child, but if we can protect just one child, we're moving forward in the right step.
The Lehigh Valley has a lot of people in it that care about their neighbors. Most people want their neighbors' lives to be better. What we need to do as a community is recognize that we really are all better off when we're all better off. It doesn't make sense for us to leave people behind. I don't care if they're kids, moms, young people, old people, people of color, it doesn't matter what they're like. Violence is a natural extension of the failure to do that. If we don't have people showing some sign of concern for their neighbors and some sort of love for others and being part of the human family, this world is in deep trouble.
So the good news is that the Centers for Disease Control feel that youth violence can be prevented. One is by promoting family environments that support healthy development. A second is connecting youth to caring adults and activities. And yet another way is to create protective community environments.
Social development strategy is one of the guiding principles of the Communities That Care model, and it's something that's very simple to do. Kids need three things to really have positive outcomes. They need to have opportunities to develop skills. They need to gain recognition for those skills. And they need to be able to develop those skills with the support of other adults and other people in their lives.
A character education is just positive reinforcement to who they really are. If I was growing up and I had someone that looks like me talking to me and telling me, hey, here's a better way, that I wouldn't have put myself in danger and done some of the many dumb things I've done.
We have a moral obligation to make sure that our young people have everything they need to be successful. We as leaders, as faith leaders, have a responsibility to interrupt those systems that are informing violence in our communities.
We need to take our community back. Like, this is where we live. This is where our children are growing up at. This is where our grandchildren are growing up. So we can't sit back and just let the police do it all. We have to step forward and be a voice for our own community.
We have to build honest and transparent relationships with the community and law enforcement. We have to build that bridge back, and that's key. We have to work together. There has to be a collaboration for safety. The community is passionate, they're tired, they're ready for change. I think they're realizing that everybody has to leave their ego at the door and come together and sit at that table and have these conversations that are not always pleasant.
For the children, the young adults, even some of the old adults that struggling, trying to change their life or whatever, it's going to take time, but you know, there's people out here that's willing to help, you know, change the course of your life, because it's never too late.
Our young people, they don't wake up one day and say, I want to take someone's life. Think about what kind of condition one must be in to think that someone else's life is not valuable or worth living. Violence has got to be made visible. Unless folks really own it as it being something that impacts them, they relegate it to a race or to a gender or to a situation and not locate it within the structure of how we actually function from day to day.
Listen, once you kill somebody and you pull that trigger, there's no turning back. Walk away. That's what I'm saying. Walk away. When you pull the trigger on somebody else, you're basically pulling the trigger on yourself. Because even though you may have life, it's quality of life is what matters.
My son had 6 kids. His 4 youngest kids would never know what a great father he was because a person just decided that they were gonna shoot him and take him from us. If your family at home is not working for you, then there's a friend, there's somebody else's family that will take you in. The streets are not the way to go.
When you do certain things to people, especially acts of violence, the ripple effect is so great and it goes so far. You're hurting generations.
So before you shoot that gun, before you join that gang, think about how you would feel if you were the victim, you were on the other side of that weapon, you're on the other side of that fight, and stop it. Get out. Connect with somebody that can help you make a difference. There are lots of us out there who want to be there for you.
These are hopeful times because we have so many organizations and individuals that are partnering to bring an end to youth violence. We have Resurrected Community Development Corporation, the Conference of Churches, the health networks coming together, the neighborhood health centers of the Lehigh Valley, our Youth Build, Community Action Committee of the Lehigh Valley, Promised Neighborhoods of the Lehigh Valley, the Allentown Police Department, the Allentown School District is heavily involved.
And Lehigh Valley Health Network is proud to collaborate with our community partners to develop strategies to create a safer community.
Have I changed? Yes, I've changed. But my change comes from making better choices. So when I talk to men, I don't say, oh, I want you to change. I just want to give you some tools so that you can start making some better choices. That usually sparks the change or the transformation.
Don't suffer in silence. Make your voice be heard. It's funny because I never would see myself as a public speaker or doing anything like this. But for my son, I'm willing to talk and let people see my pain. You have to step forward. You have to let your voice be heard. Because there's mothers out there that when they hear us suffering, they pay more attention to their kids. They want to be more proactive in their families to keep their kids out of gangs.
This is a phenomenal time to be Allentown. We have corporate leaders that you would never imagine are working side by side with gang members to develop programs to make the city a better place. Now is the moment where community voices are being lifted up. The solutions have to come from the people closest to the pain. Bring the people that live these issues every day and are often least consulted and have the most creative and intimate relationships with the solutions to the table to drive the changes. That's what excites me about Allentown right now.
Oh, I love Allentown. One of the main reasons I came back was I want to carry my son's name. We'll do some positive things in the community in his name and speak on him in a positive light. And that's what's really keeping me straight.
Allentown has the gift of diversity. And now we're starting to lean into it, and that's why I really believe we're growing. This city is on the verge of doing some amazing things, and we have the potential to be a role model city because of all the community members working together.
The good that these people are trying to do, that's bringing the revenue, bringing the city back, brings prosperity back. That's all we're trying to do is bring prosperity back. That's all we want is for the people to be safe.
We live in a very, very resource-rich community. The Lehigh Valley is blessed with the arts, sporting activities, scouting, numerous human service organizations that provide services and outreach to families.
I'm extremely proud of the work that's happening in Allentown around youth violence because the community is coming together and bridges are being built and barriers are coming down and people are beginning to look at the humanity of the children in our community and the opportunities that we can create when we work together to bring about a different time.
We believe that partnering with the community on decreasing violence is really paramount.
I think we as men, especially those of us that's been in the street, you know, either selling drugs, gangbanging, or whatever the case may be, we have to be the ones that sets the example.
That you could go from bad to good at any given time.
That's what they really want to do. You have a bunch of guys that's done a lot of different negative things in the city, and they're trying to right their wrong. They're trying to change their legacy.
To help people, make it easier for the next person.
It takes me back to that African proverb, the Umbuntu Principle. I am because we are, therefore because we are, I am. Yo soy porque nosotros somos. And it really speaks to the fact that It takes a community. Healing happens in relationships and within community, and it's all of our responsibility to create shelter. If one of our citizens, if one of our residents is struggling, it's a failure on the part of society.
Shelter is a metaphor for lots of different things, and it's some form of protection from the elements. It's also protection from abuse, and a protection from ignorance, and protection from violence.
Give me shelter, give me peace, give me hope. That's what I'm asking for my community. I'm asking that for politicians and game changers.
Give me shelter, give me peace.
Shelter is a part of what makes us human. It gives us our humanity and allows people to function in a dignified manner.
What I get out of shelter is just basically having somebody that's there that cares, that genuinely cares and doesn't look for nothing in return. That just wants you to be safe.
I just think you have to be human, show empathy, a little bit of sympathy, and just care about the person next to you, regardless of, race, gender, sexual orientation. Just, we're human. It's our responsibility.
I'm excited because we're all working together. We know that it takes a village to raise a child, to save a child's life, and to respond to that call from youth to give me shelter.